The morning sun poured through the vast windows of the Five Seasons Hotel in downtown Milwaukee, casting warm, golden light over the polished marble floors and pristine brass fixtures. The lobby buzzed with its usual rhythm: businessmen checking in, tourists wheeling sleek luggage, and concierge attendants answering phones with trained smiles. Everything gleamed. Everything moved with precision. Everything exuded exclusivity. And in the middle of that carefully arranged luxury, Giannis Antetokounmpo stood alone. She held a small handbag, worn at the corners, and wore a simple navy blue head wrap that hugged her tightly curled hair. Her clothes were modest, clean, but unfashionable by high society standards. Her eyes were warm, but they searched the space with uncertainty. Her accent was thick, her posture composed, her presence unassuming. She was a mother, no entourage, no fanfare, no designer labels. Just the mother of a son who had risen to global fame. Approaching the reception desk, she smiled gently at the young man behind the counter. He didn't return it. His name tag read Brent in clean capital letters. Brent was tall, thin, and fastidiously dressed, with hair slicked back so tightly it seemed to stretch his face. He didn't look up from his screen when she spoke. "Good morning," she began softly. "I am here to check in. My son. He make reservation. Giannis Antetokounmpo." Brent's fingers paused on the keyboard. He glanced up for the first time, his eyes trailing over her from head to toe with the subtle condescension of someone trained to judge value by appearance. She didn't look like someone with a penthouse reservation. She didn't look like someone who belonged here at all. "Can I see some ID?" he asked tersely. "Yes, of course." She handed over her passport and pulled out her phone. He send message. He say room ready. "Look, please." Brent glanced at the screen. A text message from a contact saved as "my son" read, "Ma, the suite is ready. Just give them your name at the front desk. Everything is covered. Can't wait to see you." He scoffed quietly. "Ma'am, I can't verify a reservation based on a text message. Anyone could say they're someone's mother." She blinked, slightly taken aback. "But my son, he play for Bucks. He tell me—" "Yes, I'm aware of who Giannis is," Brent interrupted sharply. "And I'm also aware that people come in here every week pretending to be related to celebrities. It's protocol. If your name is not on the guest list, I can't help you." Other guests nearby began to glance over. A couple at the check-in desk beside them whispered. A bellhop, halfway through pushing a cart of Louis Vuitton bags, slowed down, eyeing the situation. Veronica's face flushed with quiet shame. "I not pretend," she said, barely above a whisper. "He my son." Brent leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice but raising the bite. "Then where is he? Why isn't he here to check you in? I'm not trying to be rude, Ma'am, but we have standards. Please take a seat or return when your son arrives." She stepped back, stunned. No apology, no effort to call or confirm, no human kindness. Just bureaucracy wearing the skin of civility. She stood there for a moment, clutching her phone, unsure whether to wait or leave. A security guard emerged from a side hallway, called silently by Brent's gesture. He was polite but firm. "Ma'am, if you're not checking in, we'll have to ask you to clear the reception area." She nodded, lips trembling, but set in a straight line, and walked slowly toward the glass doors, passing beneath a massive crystal chandelier that shimmered mockingly above her. Outside, the city air was cooler, crisp with late spring. She crossed the street and found a small cafe on the corner. Inside, she ordered tea in hesitant English, then sat by the window. She tried to call Giannis. The call rang once, then twice, then went to voicemail. She sent him a message. "They don't let me check in. I'm at the coffee shop across the street. It's okay. I wait." But it wasn't okay. She looked out the window, watching people bustle past. Some of them might recognize her son if they saw him. Some might even know his stats, his MVP awards, his jersey number. But nobody knew the woman who sat quietly behind the glass. The woman who sold trinkets on the streets of Athens to keep her sons fed. The woman who had carried 5 children across continents and carved dignity out of poverty. The woman who had protected Giannis when they were undocumented and had nowhere to sleep. She had done it all without applause, without complaint. And now, because her appearance didn't match the hotel's expectations, she had been reduced to nothing in the eyes of a stranger trained to see only labels. The tea sat untouched. In that moment, Veronica wasn't thinking about fame or injustice. She was thinking about her son, about how hard he had worked to reach where he was, about how much he had promised to give her a better life, and how even now there were places that could look at her and refuse to see her. The world around her moved on, oblivious, but in less than an hour the calm in that hotel lobby would be shattered, and everyone inside would be forced to remember her face. Giannis Antetokounmpo was just stepping out of the practice facility when he noticed the cluster of missed calls on his phone. 4 from his mother, 1 from an unknown number. A single unread text hovered at the top of his screen. "They don't let me check in. I'm at the coffee shop across the street. It's okay. I wait." For a moment he didn't move. His grip on the phone tightened as his mind replayed the words slowly. Then all at once, she was supposed to already be in the room. He had reserved the suite himself, instructed the front desk with clarity, even left a signed note granting her full access. There was no excuse, none, for her to be turned away, much less humiliated. The fact that she wrote "it's okay" made it worse. That was her way. Softness even in injury. Grace in the face of disrespect. He didn't go to his car. He didn't call ahead. He didn't alert security or make a scene. He simply started walking. Each step faster than the last. Across the street, through traffic that honked and parted like waves, into the small corner cafe where the world's most famous mother now sat alone, trying to make herself smaller. She looked up and smiled the moment he entered, and he could see immediately that something in her expression had cracked. She wasn't the type to cry in public. Her strength had always been a quiet one, built from years of being invisible and proud. But he saw it, just beneath her surface, the quiet sting of being seen as less. And he couldn't let it go. "Mama," he said gently, kneeling next to her. "What happened?" She tried to brush it off, gave a slight shrug. "It's nothing. I told you it's okay. I think they didn't believe me. I don't look like someone staying in that kind of place." His jaw flexed. "They called security," she added softly, almost as if the memory embarrassed her. "It's all right, they don't know." But he knew, and now they were going to know too. He helped her up, thanked the barista quietly, and guided her across the street. It was no longer just about a hotel reservation. It was about what people assume when they see someone like his mother, when they see dark skin, an accent, modest clothes, and no entourage. It was about how those assumptions shape the way people speak, act, and dismiss. It was about dignity. As they stepped back into the lobby, all heads turned. He didn't announce himself. He didn't need to. At 6'11", Giannis had a presence that radiated whether he wanted it to or not. But this was different. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't posing for photos. He walked straight toward the reception desk, his mother just behind him. Brent, the same clerk from earlier, turned and froze, his blood drained. The security guard who had escorted Veronica out shifted uncomfortably behind the marble counter. Someone reached for a manager, too late. Giannis stopped in front of the desk. The room had gone silent, the kind of silence that settles right before something important is said. He looked directly at Brent, his voice low but unmistakably firm. "Do you remember her?" Brent tried to swallow. "Sir, I didn't realize, she told you who she was," Giannis continued, his tone still even but sharp. "She showed you a message. She gave her name. You looked at her and decided she wasn't worth helping." "I was just following protocol." "No, you weren't," Giannis interrupted. "You were following judgment. You saw a black woman with an accent and no fancy jewelry, and you assumed she didn't belong." Brent looked down. The security guard shifted again, clearly unsure whether to stay or leave. "My mother came here with nothing," Giannis said, his voice rising just slightly. "She worked 2 jobs. She walked miles so we could eat. She sacrificed her entire life so her children could dream. And now she walks into a hotel in a country she helped me represent around the world, and you humiliate her. In front of strangers." No one spoke. Phones were already out. Guests were recording. The weight of the moment hung thick in the air. Giannis turned to look at his mother, who stood quietly beside him, unsure whether to intervene. He touched her shoulder gently, then turned back to Brent. "You should be ashamed. Not because she's my mother, but because she's a human being. And no one deserves to be treated the way you treated her." A manager finally appeared, breathless and red-faced, whispering something into Brent's ear. Giannis didn't flinch. "I'm done with this place," he said. "Cancel every room I ever booked here. I'll find somewhere else that treats people with basic respect." The manager began to stammer an apology, but Giannis raised a hand. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to her, and then ask yourself how many people like her get treated this way when no one famous is around to see it." He turned to his mother. "Come on, Mama, we're leaving." As they walked back through the lobby, the silence followed them. Eyes trailed them not with curiosity but with shame. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't a celebrity outburst. It was a son standing up for his mother in the clearest, most dignified way possible. And in doing so, he had held up a mirror to a room full of polished strangers and asked them to see what they usually refused to see. Outside, the afternoon light was beginning to soften. Cars zipped by. The world kept moving. But something had shifted. Hours later, Giannis posted a message to his followers. It was short and deliberate. "The way you treat someone when you think they're nobody says everything about you. My mother is everything to me, and she deserves to be treated with respect wherever she goes. End of story." The post went viral. News outlets picked it up. Tweets flooded timelines. Comment sections filled with outrage, praise, tears, and stories from other sons, other mothers, other quiet humiliations that had gone unnoticed. Veronica's face, captured in a photo leaving the hotel holding her son's hand, circulated with captions like "True Queen," "The woman behind the MVP," "Every mother deserves dignity." But Giannis didn't post again that night. He had nothing more to say. The statement had already been made. And for once the world listened, not because of a highlight reel or a slam dunk, but because a man reminded everyone what greatness truly looks like. The next morning, headlines rolled in like thunder. Not the usual sports reports, not the box scores or highlight reels. This time, Giannis Antetokounmpo's name appeared in news, not sports. NBA star confronts hotel over treatment of his mother. Giannis takes a stand for dignity. The Greek freak defends the queen behind the crown. But even the most dramatic headlines couldn't fully capture what had actually happened the day before. Not in that hotel lobby, and not in the millions of minds now wrestling with what they had seen. By midday, the video had been viewed more than 10 million times. A hotel guest had discreetly recorded the moment Giannis spoke out. The clarity of his words, the calm rage in his voice, the way he placed his body between his mother and a system that tried to shrink her. It spread across social media like a spark in dry grass. People shared their own stories, mothers treated like strangers, fathers ignored at counters, grandmothers mistaken for maids. The world had seen the top of the mountain, Giannis the global icon, the champion. But now they were reminded of the steep and painful climb that preceded it, of the woman who had carried him, figuratively and literally, every step of the way. And yet, through all the noise, Veronica Antetokounmpo remained quiet. She didn't do interviews. She didn't ask for sympathy. She didn't even change her travel plans. She had come to Milwaukee to see her son, and that's exactly what she intended to do. They spent that evening together in a modest suite at another hotel, this one owned by a local family with no interest in fame. She cooked for him, rice, stewed goat, and soft bread, just like she used to when the apartment back in Sepolia had no heat. They laughed. They talked about nothing and everything. For a few hours, the world disappeared, and she was simply a mother again, proud and protective, and he was her boy, exhausted and grateful. Meanwhile, the hotel that had rejected her released a statement. It was polished, full of corporate language. "We sincerely regret the experience. We are reviewing internal policies. This does not reflect our values." But it was too late. People weren't interested in apologies crafted by PR teams. They were interested in the truth that Giannis had pulled into the light. The truth that status doesn't erase prejudice, and wealth doesn't buy respect if your skin tone or your accent still triggers suspicion in certain spaces. In private, the hotel fired Brent. They updated their staff protocols, added new training modules, and reached out to Giannis with an offer of reconciliation. He didn't respond. Publicly, he remained silent. But that silence was louder than any statement. It was the silence of disappointment, of someone who had hoped the world had come further than it had, and who now understood again that change was never granted, only demanded. Within days, something unexpected began to happen. Schools began using the video as a teaching moment. Teachers showed it in ethics classes, sociology discussions, and leadership seminars. One middle school teacher in Chicago wrote on a whiteboard, "Dignity is not earned by fame. It is owed to every human being." Below it, she printed a still of Giannis standing beside his mother, eyes locked on the hotel staff, as if daring the world to blink first. In New York, a professor held an open forum titled "The Invisible Matriarch: From Africa to Athens to the NBA." Students discussed systemic bias, the intersections of race, class, and gender. They examined how easy it is for society to celebrate someone on a stage and still look past the person who raised him. It wasn't just about Giannis anymore. It was about all the mothers who had been walked past, overlooked, underestimated, until their children became too successful to ignore. And then there was the hospital. Several weeks later, Milwaukee Children's Hospital announced the construction of a new wing dedicated to maternal wellness and immigrant family support. The funding, they said, came from a private donor. Quietly, no press release, no ceremony. But staff quickly figured it out. A small plaque installed near the entrance read, "For the mothers who walk unseen." Next to it a name, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis never claimed credit. When asked about it by a reporter during a post-game press conference, he simply smiled and said, "My mom believes in helping people, not headlines." The incident also shifted something deeper in Giannis himself. He had always been vocal about his roots, about selling sunglasses on the streets of Athens, about fleeing Nigeria, about the sacrifices his parents made. But this moment had added something new. It made him understand, more viscerally than ever, how much his success could shield him, and how little that shield extended to the people who raised him. Fame could open doors, but only if he was the one knocking. Without him, his mother was still judged, still pushed aside, still unseen. So he began speaking more often about dignity, not as a charity, but as a right. He donated to immigrant advocacy programs. He met with young athletes who came from refugee backgrounds, and every time he was asked what motivated him to keep pushing, he returned to the same answer. "My family, my mother, everything I do is because of her." Meanwhile, Veronica kept living the same way she always had. She cooked, she prayed. She sent messages to her children every morning. She still walked with humility. But now, when people recognized her on the street, they didn't just see Giannis's mom. They saw a woman who had endured, a woman who had reminded the world what grace under fire looks like. And what of Brent, the hotel worker? No one heard from him again. His name faded from the news cycle. Some said he moved to another city. Others said he left hospitality altogether. Maybe he learned. Maybe he didn't. But one thing was certain. His face was frozen forever in that viral video, standing behind a counter, being held accountable not just by a customer, but by a son who refused to let silence cover disrespect. And in homes across the world, mothers who had once been ignored were being embraced a little tighter. Sons and daughters were calling more often. Some of them apologized. Some simply said thank you, but all of them remembered. Because what happened in that hotel wasn't just a confrontation, it was a mirror. And Giannis, by choosing to hold that mirror up, didn't just defend his mother. He reminded the world that greatness has a foundation, and it usually wears worn shoes, speaks with an accent, and smiles through tears no one ever sees.